Hello, my name is Marie Bennett and I'm a PhD student at the University of Winchester.
And I'm Fiorenzo Palermo, and I'm a popular music lecturer at Middlesex University.
We're going to talk a little bit about Freddie Mercury, his celebrity and his legacy. So maybe I could start by asking you, Fiorenzo, what is it about Freddie Mercury that's had an impact on you and your teaching?
Yes, the impact Freddie Mercury and Queen have had has to do mainly with issues of canonicity. And in particular, my teaching on the topic is based on an article that Anne Dessler published some time ago that was called History Without Royalty. And Dessler in this article talks about Queen's reception history and essentially investigating how, despite Queen essentially remaining the same band, their reception changed considerably over time because of certain circumstances, certain events. And so Queen and Freddie Mercury are really interesting case study in that respect.
Right. It's interesting that you say that their reception changed over time. Do you think that was anything to do with Freddie's sexuality? Because I'm just thinking that in the early days, the days of glam rock, when really people were projecting a particular image in terms of what they were wearing, it was maybe camouflaged a little bit, whereas later, I think maybe things changed.
Yes, it's interesting because, as you say, in the 70s, Freddie Mercury's outrageous costumes and look was pretty much the norm, at least, within the context of glam rock. And it was only really in the 80s when he adopted the gay clone look that he was very specifically referencing a particular subculture. And so I think that his sexuality definitely had an impact in the reception of Queen, and maybe not so much in the UK, but certainly in the US, I think that affected their career.
Yes, that's something I can sort of pick up on a little bit, because I think there's a couple of issues relating to that, actually. One is that I think the gay clone look, people in the UK didn't really understand that. I think that certainly people were sending him razors in the post, saying, Freddie, we don't like the moustache, this sort of thing.
Was it perhaps because that was specific to New York and maybe it was much more easy to read that code?
I think so, yes.
Right.
And I think Freddie was spending more and more time in New York, actually, in the early 80s. I think he felt it was freer. He could be himself maybe more. But the other thing, interestingly, that came to mind is the video for I Want to Break Free. If you know that's where they, all members of the band decided to dress as women. And it's a very funny video because it's quite tongue-in-cheek, but it's also sort of quite in your face. And I believe that was actually banned in the United States. I think the fact that it was men dressed as women, people couldn't really accept that, even sort of maybe 84, 85, I think that came out.
And I suppose perhaps to kind of compound that issue, I think that those were the years in which, of course, there was the AIDS crisis and the kind of very unfortunate and discriminatory association of AIDS with homosexuality. I think that also had quite an impact on the sort of reception that Queen would have.
Yes, I think that's very much the case. It's interesting because obviously Freddie died from an AIDS-related illness, that some journalists at that time were so sort of vicious, actually, in reporting his death. And I think they read the situation in the UK anyway wrongly. They didn't realise how popular Freddie was amongst the general public, and people were grieving because he had died. They weren't necessarily thinking, well, you know, he's died from an AIDS-related illness at that time. They just needed to express their grief. And I think that the journalists then thought, oh, hold on, and sort of changed their tack, changed their tune really in terms of how they were reporting things, and very much going back to the idea of Freddie Mercury as a celebrity figure, and to do with the importance he had on people.
I think in terms of the kind of relationship that an audience is able to establish with a celebrity is able to establish with an audience, I think Freddie Mercury is definitely an interesting example. I suppose another famous death that has that kind of aspect is Diana, where there's a genuine outpouring of feeling and emotion, and really makes you realize the importance that these celebrities have for many people, and just how these relationships really touch people. They really affect people.
Yes, and I think the fact that, you know, you may never have met Diana, or you may never have met Freddie Mercury, but that doesn't matter really, because somehow, as you say, they've touched you in some way, they've influenced your life in some way. And I think that it's interesting about Live Aid actually, because I think Live Aid, a lot of people clearly were in the audience, but also because it was broadcast worldwide and people were watching it and seeing how talented the band were, but particularly as the frontman, Freddie Mercury, and that also had a real impact on people's reaction to Queen and reaction to his music, and Freddie the man, really.
I think, I suppose, talking about Live Aid and the sort of impact Queen had, I think an important aspect is really this other dimension that their legacy has, in the sense that, of course, their work and their music lives on in various forms. There's a musical, there's going to be a film about his life. Lots of young artists mention Freddie Mercury and Queen as an influence, but also, I suppose, because people have rallied around the cause of raising awareness about HIV and funding research and supporting people. I think Queen have had a really important role to play in that respect, and I think that's another important way in which their celebrity has functioned, to really turn lots of people into sort of social activists, because lots of activities that are related to Queen now perform this role of funding research and I suppose also the trust that was set.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, and I think because Freddie made that statement just before he died about his illness, and I think the band really felt we need to do something to commemorate Freddie's legacy, his music, and set up the tribute concert. And then we're amazed because the tickets just sold out so quickly. And then they felt, well, what are we going to do with this money? We need to do something that's going to be important in terms of people understanding about HIV and AIDS and the spread of AIDS. And so the Mercury Phoenix Trust was set up then. And it's fascinating for me that it's over 25 years since Freddie died, and yet still it's the fans really who are raising the money to help this charity. And they've got certain events like Freddie for a Day, where people can dress up as Freddie Mercury, or just little things that people do. And it is so special because it's so personal almost. It's, yes, Freddie had an influence on my life, and I want to raise money to raise awareness of HIV.
So personal and at the same time quite political in a way, because of the role it has. And it's interesting because in a way, I guess, although as you said, it was something that happened after Freddie Mercury died. In some ways, this sort of legacy was envisaged by Mercury. In fact, in his statement,
Yes.
He kind of asked people to gather together around this cause and contribute. So in a way, it's kind of following on from his vision.
Absolutely, I think so. And I think the band felt that as well, the other members of the band, and thought, yes, this is what Freddie wanted, and we've got to, I mean, they were very loyal and this really, and wanted to do that for him. And it's been amazing, really, the amount of money that's been raised. And I think, even, as I said, because it's so long since he died, but somehow he's become this icon. I think he's this recognisable figure. So even young people who maybe don't know Queen's songs so much, they would recognise Freddie Mercury. And I think that the fact that it's a Mercury Phoenix Trust, people make that connection. And it's something that is hopefully will go on.
Yes, absolutely. So that's an interesting way in how celebrity can function in regards to these causes, because to have such a well-known figure that has been canonized, in popular music, and somebody who is so recognizable, and so to have that person as a sort of emblem or for a cause like that, it's very important.
It's
right?
absolutely
to maintain
important.
that support.
Yes, I agree, and I think even today that Queen's music is still being played, the fact that some of their concerts are still repeated on the television, it shows how important really they were. But it's also bringing Freddie Mercury again to the fore, into the public eye or into the public ear, and then that connection with that charity is it really helps them, I think, to raise money. Yes. Well, Fiorenzo, it's been so interesting talking to you, about Freddie Mercury.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thanks.